Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is someone that I think very highly of and that I have learned a lot from. And his name is Joshua Spodek, and you can find him online at joshuaspodek.com. It's JOSHUASPODEK.com. And Joshua, thanks for joining me. And I would, we met originally when you were working on, I think it was your first TEDx talk. Is that right? And you have a podcast of your own. People can probably find that at your website too. Yeah. And we'll talk about that. That's a great podcast. But you talk about leadership. You are a professor of leadership. Tell us a little bit about what your focus is and where you teach and everything, just to get us rolling here, because I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of private clients, but I teach at NYU. And more than what I teach is how I teach. It's a very experiential, project-based course. I was motivated because business school is where I learned that there were courses in leadership, but they taught case study, reading and writing papers, lecture, and that was what I call it's like if you want to learn how to play piano and someone lectures you or tells you to read about Bach,
yeah,
you got to get your fingers on the keyboard,
right.
And so I developed an experiential, project-based course that taught how I think people actually learn a behavioral thing.
Yeah.
So I get these amazing reviews, and because the students are all like, I didn't know that I could learn these things. And it's not a lot of things. Yeah. People think leadership is telling people what to do.
Yeah.
If they have this model, if I didn't get them to do it, they didn't want to do it. So I'm getting them to do something they don't want.
Yeah.
My model for leadership is helping people do what they've always wanted to do, but haven't figured out how. And there's a lot of that in the world.
Yeah.
So and I teach it.
That's your podcast too, but we can talk about that later, but that's fabulous. I love that.
It's really a life-changing experience for a lot of people. It's learning how to communicate authentically, how to listen more, how to make people feel comfortable, sharing what motivates them so that you can connect what motivates them to the task. And that makes the task feel meaningful to them. And it's not the same as telling people what to do.
Yeah.
That's more management. I don't want to demean management. Management and leadership are both very important.
Yes.
But there are differences, and people get management a lot easier than they get leadership, but leadership is essential for big projects.
Yeah, I totally
a better life,
agree.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and one of the things that I love about what you say there is the way that I might say it is I want people to see something in what they're doing that's for themselves as well. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you going to get out of working for me here or doing this project or whatever? Because the minute that people see that accomplishing that objective would also provide them something, they just get more excited about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that the other thing in what you said is that component of listening and understanding people and making it a place where they can really say who they are and what they are, and you get that, and then it helps you get those two things aligned, what they're doing and who they are, right?
Yeah, if you want to manage someone, you can generally say, this is what we want to get done. If you get it done, I'll pay you. If you don't get it done, I'll fire you, or some carrots and sticks. And that will get people's incentives and motivations aligned. But leadership is more about stories and images. And if you want to lead someone, you have to know what their existing motivations are. If I tell you I'll pay you if you do it and I won't pay you if you don't, that works with everyone, but it's a limited amount. You can't get someone that won't really inspire someone.
Yeah.
If you want to inspire someone, you have to find out what's inside them before you ever met them. And if someone's listening to us right now, they care about leadership. They got to where they are. It wasn't trivial. They had to work. That means, they're not just flipping burgers, probably. And that means everyone around them is also, something has motivated them to get them where they are. If you don't tap into that, they will always feel a little misunderstood, maybe a lot misunderstood. They won't feel like they're doing it because they really want to. In fact, they might even hide that. So You have to listen to hear what's there. Actually, even before listening, you have to ask the right questions. And even before asking the right questions, you have to portray and convey that you're non-judgmental, that you're supportive, that you will listen when they speak. You're not going to talk over them. You're not going to interrupt them too much. And I don't mean that just in the moment, but in general, you're going to honor who they are, because what motivates people also makes them vulnerable. And so people protect that. You want to convey that you will honor that and respect that so that they can feel comfortable sharing it. Then when you ask the questions, you'll get the answers.
Yeah. So that's, I totally agree with you, Joshua. And one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, because we're recording this on July 7th in 2020. So we're in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and there's been a lot of social, unrest and movement lately. And I think that what that has really highlighted for me is that, yes, some things have changed. Sure, we're all on Zoom a lot more, and et cetera, et cetera. But the fundamentals of great leadership and even great management, I think, the fundamentals of that haven't shifted. But what has happened is that this, where we are now, where we're going to be for the foreseeable future, I think has really highlighted how poorly bad leadership works.
Yeah, we're virtually devoid of effective leadership right now. And I'm not just talking, people think, oh, Trump. I'm talking about everywhere, in the arts, in culture, in education, in sports, in business, in politics.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, like, what about Fauci? He's managing very effectively. But that's management. And it's very important. Leadership without management, you get dreamers.
Yeah, right.
But
Nothing
management
happens.
without leadership, you get the DMV. And people listening to this podcast are probably not wanting to get a government job where they can retire in 50 years and just get promoted when the person above them leaves. And we have very little leadership right now. I certainly, my forte is in the leadership in the area of the environment. And I'm hard pressed to find anyone who's leading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who's out there living consistently with the values that they profess others live by and is enjoying it, is showing that, is it making you feel like, I want to do that too? Yeah. No one. I really can think of almost no one. I mean, even Greta, who, to her credit, is she says she doesn't want to fly and she's not flying. But she's saying the house is on fire. She's saying she wants panic. And panic is what you do when you don't know what to do. Yeah. When you know what to do, you don't panic. So not to discredit her in any way whatsoever, but I wouldn't call that leadership. It is leadership, but it's a small sector. It's a small amount of it. Yeah. 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 Well, the whole thing of carrots and sticks and command and control, and I'm looking over your shoulder, and I can, I was talking to a friend who's working with a company that, they want to have all of their employees turn on Zoom in the morning and aim their camera at themselves and sit so that the boss can see everybody on Zoom and make sure they're all working. I mean, so he's telling everyone to brush up on their resume. Yeah. Start sending it out. Exactly. And I think that what, you went to the social level and the global level, but I think that what you said is true at that level, and it in companies, it's making it a lot more clear who's a really skillful leader and who isn't too. It's becoming, I think, increasingly obvious who on teams is actually pulling their weight, who isn't, who's a good leader, who's maybe not as good a leader. And I think those fundamental principles of great leadership are the same now as they ever were. It's just a lot more obvious where it's missing. And I do think that one of the things that I have really been thinking about through this whole time, Joshua, is where is that leadership? Like, who is willing to lead? And I think that there are a number of things mitigating against great leadership. Like, there's zero place for nuance anymore.
It's all sound bites and social media. And so that, that just makes it even harder and more scary to step up and actually lead. And I wonder what happened to our idea of civic duty and ethics in business. And, like that stuff is all important. And that's a function, I think, of great leadership to keep those things top of mind. But I think in the business world for quite a while, and in politics for quite a while, and socially for quite a while, those have just been less talked about. I don't,
less practiced. There aren't a whole lot of role models right now. I mean, for me, a big thing. Okay, so we're not going out as much. We're not quite so locked down now as we were a month ago. I'm staying locked down, and not. Yeah. I mean, I got to buy food and so forth. Yeah. But there's not a lot of role models of people who are staying in and showing like this is a civic duty. This is something that's protecting others. And for me, my touchstone in lockdown is Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 27 years. Yeah. For his 70th birthday, there was a party that had 200,000 people attending, all around the world while he was still in prison. And he emerged to become president of the nation. Yeah. And people are freaking out after 3 months. Yeah. 3 months, 27 years. He got a lot done in there. Yeah. And to me, I have a role model. He is a leader for me. He's a leader for many, nothing. Yeah. I don't have any special access to him, but there's nothing like that right now. I don't know of anyone who's of global renown or even any renown who's saying, this is great. Not this is great, but this is not just horrible. This is not just a horror show. This is something that people in significantly worse situations did just fine. Of course, he was, no one wants to be put in Robben Island, which is their Alcatraz, and forced to do labor. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's Viktor Frankl. There's plenty of historical examples of people who've been able to not just endure, but, Viktor Frankl wrote about love and bliss in Auschwitz. Yeah. This is not remotely. I can't even put them in the same sentence. Yeah. No. Sure. Yeah. And we don't have it. Certainly we have would-be leadership, not leadership, going the other direction. Yeah. And saying, oh, this is horrible. But I don't see a lot of people, I see a lot of finger pointing. Yeah. I don't see a lot of people like really celebrating this. Maybe there's some TV shows that are going from home. I'm not sure. I don't watch them very much, but well, it points out that I think that there is great opportunity for courageous leadership, in a lot of different realms in our society right now. It doesn't have to be courageous. I mean, it's not that you don't have to be that courageous to like show that from home you can, I don't know, at least one person has become president of a nation that hated him for the color of his skin. But the way I often put it, because I have a lot of people who come to me and they want to get promoted and they come for coaching for that. Yeah. And I point out that a lot of them, they know me and they know leadership in the area of the environment is one of my fortes. Yeah. So I point out to them, there are more CSOs than chief sustainability officers than ever, but very few of them. They didn't get there by being promoted through some sustainability track. There is none. Yeah. If you want to become a C-suite leader, the way to do it now is to act environmentally, personally, or in your community, even if your company doesn't do it. And this is an opportunity for a position that is growing like crazy. Not like crazy, but there's more CSOs than ever, and there will be more than ever. Yes. And if you want to do it, there is no track to do it except this: lead. Yeah. Lead in the area of the environment in your life, certainly starting with yourself. Yeah. And anyone who thinks, oh, but what I do doesn't matter, is missing the point that what gets you. That's like saying, playing a scale won't get you to Carnegie Hall, because what's a scale? Right. But when you practice, how many times did I do my TEDx talks with you? I mean, I must have done them hundreds of times. Yeah. That's how you get good. Is you got to practice, you got to rehearse. And if you think that by reading about something, you develop the skills to practice it or lead others in it, I don't think you're going to get there. But if you do practice it, that's the crazy thing. I've had on my podcast leaders in Google, Apple, federal government, local government, McDonald's. They get promoted because they actually do stuff that everyone else is like saying we should really do this, and then when we say, well, what are you doing? They're like, well, the government should do it, corporations should do it, but what can I do? Well, when you do it, you develop the skills.
Yeah,
it's people get hung up on the scale of what you do. How is what I'm doing big enough?
Right.
The question I would say is, what am I learning from it? I'm not going to argue that little things don't add up if enough people do them. That may be. If you make it meaningful for someone, including for yourself, then you'll enjoy it and you'll want to do it more. And I'll tell you what adds up. Big things that you share with others who then also do big things. Big things add up a lot faster. And that comes from meaningful things, which comes from listening, which comes from showing that you're going to listen and finding out what motivates people. Oh yeah, when you're talking about that before, there's a great quote from Eisenhower. He said, it's getting the other guy to do your thing for his reason.
Oh, that's so perfect. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about an effective leader. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I'm hearing swirling around in this conversation, I think quite a bit, is the idea of your context. What is your context? Viktor Frankl was in a horrible situation and he had a bigger context than the moment, Same thing with Nelson Mandela. His context for himself and his life, his context for his imprisonment, his context for what he was up to was much bigger than the prison cell, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that how we frame it in our minds is our choice. And right now, it's really crazy to me that we in our homes have access to all the culture that has ever been recorded. We have access to anyone else with an internet connection, with higher bandwidth communication than anyone has ever had. Yeah. We can get all the food we want. But we don't frame it as, I don't know how people are framing it. I'm certainly, to some extent, like, well, at least I'm not breaking rocks.
Right.
And
oh, heck yeah.
And what are the opportunities that I can do? And so, how people frame it. Yeah. Nelson Mandela, he befriended his captors because he wanted to learn Afrikaans from them, because he saw it as they are also pawns in the same system, and we both benefit from changing that system. Yeah. So he didn't see them as the enemy.
Yeah.
That's got to change his relationship with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you remind me of something, and you might enjoy knowing this if you didn't already. But I got to spend time on Necker Island a while ago and meet, among many other amazing people, the president of Colombia, who was responsible for ending the civil war there. And one of the things that he did when he came into office, they were doing it like Vietnam, right? How many guerrillas did we kill? There was a body count thing, and they just were trying to kill as many as they could. And that's how they were winning this war, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he said, okay, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to even call them the enemy anymore. They are our adversaries. And we will go after them with everything we have. But the minute that they're injured and we can do something about it, we're going to give them the best medical care that we can, just like we do our own wounded. And we are not going to call them the enemy, and we are no longer going to destroy them. They are the adversary, and we are, and he said he had to fire a few generals who couldn't get it, but that finally was a big piece, I think, of what turned the tide there. And, it's very, very interesting. Again, framing has just so much to do with it. And I think that as a leader, that's one of your obligations, really, is to have a very powerful context, a very powerful frame, and then powerfully communicate that to everybody who's following you, and even perhaps your adversaries, Yeah,
managers won't often do that. And leaders, that is a major piece of leadership. For personal leadership to decide your choice in how you frame things,
Yeah.
and leading others for how you influence others to frame things.
Yeah.
The mind reels at all the different ways that one can frame this.
Sure.
I mean, it's funny, at the beginning, I would say this is an opportunity. And for a while I would say, proper deference to people who are family members dying, who themselves might be sick. But now it's still an opportunity. I've also seen that it may have been that net lives have been saved because of the decreased pollution because of this. Right. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, if actually lives are saved, then I don't have to say that preface about I still want to respect and honor people who are suffering.
Sure.
Or in pain. But here's another big frame. I was listening to another podcast, and the people were talking about how humans are apparently notoriously ineffective at telling what will make them feel good and what won't make them feel good. Like they feel like,
yes.
I'm kind of tired, I'm going to watch some TV. And then they get up after watching TV and it's like 3 hours passed they were going to sit down for 30 minutes. And they're like, I wasted my time. And they think, I don't really want to work at the soup kitchen. It's so much work. And then they leave the soup kitchen like, that was great.
Yeah.
And I found there's all these articles about how to self-care during the pandemic and how to, make sure you're feeling good and so forth.
Right.
What actually makes people feel better is serving others. And there's so many people that are having so many troubles right now. Helping them is going to make you feel much better. One of my clients, his son or daughter goes to a school in Upper East Side, and they have a summer project is like to serve someone in some way. And so all these other parents apparently were complaining that now they can't get out and serve because they're stuck indoors. And I'm like, this is the best time to serve. This is like, your inability to get out doesn't stop you from being able to help people. This is
right.
More people than ever could use your help. This is an opportunity. And it's of the many ways of looking at it, is like how you frame it, how the context of how you choose to look at that is they were looking at it like, well, I can't do what I was going to do, so therefore I can't achieve my goal. They could use leadership.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's another thing that I would love to just pursue a little bit, is this idea of so many people who don't understand or recognize their leadership potential. And one example of what I mean is that I was listening to, again, another really good podcast, and what they were talking about, social cohesion. And one of the big issues with everybody being in lockdown is that in a lot of communities, you had the people from, I want to say it sensitively, but I guess the good side of the tracks and the bad side of the tracks, but they would all bring their kids to the same school, and they would see each other as they were dropping their kids off or as they were interacting at events at the school. And so people had these kind of loose ties, but ties between super rich neighborhoods and super poor neighborhoods and this neighborhood and that neighborhood. And now no one knows what's going on in anybody else's neighborhood right now. And so, okay, if you're a parent in one of those circumstances, could you just organize a Zoom call once a week and say, let's all just talk to each other and touch base since we don't get to see each other? Because that could have an enormous impact on the social cohesion of that city as we go through all the stuff that came right after, the pandemic hitting, right? I think that was potentially, one of the factors in all the protests and demonstrations and things is that everybody was so out of touch with each other and people didn't know what was going on. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have done that. I'm just saying, I think it increased the anxiety around that is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because we're just out of touch.
It strikes me as one of many, many things. And once people do that, that'll either work or not work. And if it works, you build and build. And it could be it works and you just stick with that. That could be.
Yeah. Yep.
My hunch is that if you do that, then you're going to find other things you can do. And
Right.
that's leadership. Then you become
Yep.
CSO of some major corporation, or you know,
Right.
whatever you want. Maybe you get elected,
Yes.
or maybe just community just likes you more, or your kids like you more.
Yeah.
But
Or
I don't
you
see,
like you more.
yeah. I don't see regret coming out of that.
No. Yeah. No. Well, I really appreciate what I see as your focus on self-leadership and the importance of that. And, let's talk a little bit about your self-leadership in the world of the environment, because I'm still looking forward to coming to New York and having one of your
no packaging vegetable stew.
Yes. Yeah. Say it again slower.
My famous no packaging vegetable stew.
Yes, very good. One thing that we did, and I give Sharon credit for this too, but I definitely supported it and thought of you. We've been getting one of the community farming bags, and so like there's almost zero packaging, and we've really enjoyed that, and we just eat what's in there. And Sharon, like, if she doesn't know what it is, she looks it up and figures out how to cook something with it. And it's been really, really nice. And what's funny is a lot of my friends have gained like the pandemic 15. I lost 10 pounds and feel good about it.
See that home stretch of a life goal?
Yep.
So my birthday is in 2 weeks. And my abs are more defined than ever. And the life, it's not a life goal, because it wasn't until it started happening that I think everyone at least once in their life, okay, this is me, right? There are people who they have body shapes of whatever they want, and that's their deal. But for me, in my body, I think I want to have at least once in my life be ripped. Yeah. And I'm not like hulking strong.
Right.
But, I have to say, like, the path of learning about myself, my beliefs, my behavior, my physical self, is it's an adventure. I'm losing parts of myself that I didn't want, the stuff covering me up.
Yeah,
and I'm finding out. Here's my main switch, because I've always been eating very healthy, or not always, but since avoiding packaged food,
right,
and what I'm finding is that instead of eating to stuffed, I'm eating to full. And right now, all this food is right now we're like overflowing in green leafy vegetables, very low caloric density, very tasty to me now that I've learned how to cook them. So I'm eating to full, just not stuffed. And I'm losing like a little bit of weight every day, or every, and then in particular, I'm losing a little bit of fat. And it's really amazing. Like I love, so personal leadership in the area of the environment. Why am I doing this? Because I started off years ago of challenging myself, looking down at my garbage, and you've heard me say this hundreds of times because of the TEDx stuff. I looked down at my garbage and I was like, that's a lot of garbage. And I thought, I don't want to produce so much. Well, what can I do? I'm just one person. Well, that's my garbage and I'm responsible for that. And so I challenged myself. Could I go for a week without buying any packaged food? And there's a lot of story behind that. And I went 2.5 weeks thinking I couldn't. And then for a while it was eating a lot of steamed vegetables, which wasn't very tasty, although it fit. It was not polluting. Yep. But then I learned how to cook from scratch, and I got my CSA. So I get the farm share delivered. I go to the farmers markets, and little by little I learned how to do it. And that led to all these other changes. So my trash bag over there is like a quarter full. So that's since December. So I'll make it probably 2 years before I fill up that load of trash.
Yeah, it's so fabulous.
More delicious than ever.
Yeah, I just love it. And I think that because we've talked so much, I know that a lot of times when people hear that kind of a thing, they think, oh, you're so good, you're so virtuous, giving it up for something like that and suffering the deprivations of that. But right. But I mean, that's kind of what people hear, right? You're saving money and you like it more, and your life became more rich and fulfilling out of taking those actions, right?
And nothing special about me in this regard. If you have values and you're living, if you take your top 10 things and you're kind of, I don't know, I'm a little of this, a little of that. If you get rid of the lower values and you're only stuck with the higher ones, that improves your life. It's less confusing. It's more purposeful. It's more meaningful. Here's something that's like one of my latest things is, so years ago, my hair started receding. So I started using minoxidil or Rogaine, minoxidil. And I'm now at the point where the little plastic containers, that's most of the plastic that I get these days. So now, unlike a change to avoid packaged food or to avoid flying, where I can always reverse it. If I stop using this stuff, maybe it'll keep going back, but maybe it's not doing anything. So I'm thinking, I've been thinking for a while, every time I've bought it for the past year, a couple of years, I've been like, oh man, this is a lot of plastic. But my vanity, right? I want to keep it.
I love that you're admitting this.
It might never come forward again.
Right.
And it's not like if I choose not to fly, like I never chose never to fly again. I just stopped. I just gave myself a challenge to go for 1 year without flying. And the year ended up being so awesome, all this voyage of self-discovery and growth that I went, well, let's go for another year and another year. So now I'm in my 5th year. But it's reversible, right?
You can always get on a plane,
Yeah, and actually as a matter of history, like I've learned how to sail before Greta, but I haven't sailed across the ocean yet, but that's part of the plan, which I didn't anticipate at the beginning. But so now I'm now a couple days into not using, I'm very habit oriented. So I would always put it on just the right times and so forth. And now I'm like, oh man, every time I've chosen to live by a value, no matter how hard it was, it's always worked out in the long run. And this one, I'm like, I don't know. So now I'm a couple days in and I can feel it it's gone back a little bit. I'm like, damn it. But I'm not buying that plastic.
And you got a long ways to go before you catch up with me.
Well, I don't know. It depends on how fast it'll go. But that's the experiment. Look, I got one life and I want to, do I want to live by my values or not?
Yeah.
And I cannot put this in words in any way that anyone has gotten it. But if you try it, you'll struggle. And if you stick with it, you'll get there. Along the way, you'll say, this isn't worth it. Along the way, you'll say, I don't want to do it. Along the way, you'll say, oh, Josh can do it because he's got some privilege or something like that. You can do it. The last talk that I gave before the pandemic hit was I went up to the Bronx and I gave this talk on how to cook my famous no packaging vegetable stews. It was a single mom in a food desert invited me up there. And everyone was like, Josh, oh, you can do this because blah, blah, blah. What I do is very accessible. It's not trivial. But when I was up there, what they said, the first person, after I showed step by step, here's how to do what I do. The first person said, oh, we can't do that up here because we don't have stuff. And then the next person said, actually, I go here. And the next person said, I go there and we can make this work. And so the person who invited me said, you give us a way out. These fast food places, they don't make things cheaper. It looks that way. Yeah. And it looks like it's more convenient, but they take time and money away from us. You're showing us how to get out of that.
Yeah.
So of course I'm not a single mom in a food desert, but nor is anyone else me. But this is a way to save money and it's a way to get rid of those leeches off of. You go up to these food deserts and it's hard to find stuff, but it's not impossible.
Right.
But it's a lot easier when you know how to make the stuff. And so so I went for months with all the steamed broccoli and steamed cabbage, and it wasn't particularly tasty. But gradually, one by one, I was like, this works with that, and that works with that, and then I got a pressure cooker, and and the things came together. And eventually, I spend less money than ever, it tastes better than ever.
Yeah.
And in terms of it, I'm supporting a local farmer, several local farmers, and I get all this free stuff because now I go to the same stand when I get my when I go to the farmer's market. I always go to the same stand. Right. And they give me extra vegetables because
they love you because you're a longtime customer.
Actually, because I use my leadership techniques with them, and they smile when they give me this. Like when someone buys beets, a lot of people just want beets, but they don't want the leaves.
Right.
So they give me so sometimes someone will buy beets, they cut off the leaves, put that to take back to compost at the farm. Well, they just give it to me. I just got good. Someone else was like, I'm happy to eat the beets, but I'm happy to eat the leaves too. The leaves are great.
Yeah.
So I'll take the free stuff. Same with carrot greens.
Yeah.
And I was about to get started on all the vegetables that people eat half of and they throw away the rest and I get free. I'm like, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's good. And, that's cool. And, one of the things that I think that leads me to mentally is just the fundamental importance of living and leading from your values. And I really feel like we just got so far away from that, like what happened there? I feel like originally, if I understand it right, to be able to form a limited liability company and get the benefits of having limited liability and be able to invest something and not risk everything to go do something good, to get a charter to start a corporation or an LLC or something like that, you had to provide some kind of community benefit. And it seems like that has almost been reversed 180 degrees.
That we have these psychopathic corporations.
Yeah, totally. Like psychopathic, vampire live forever. Shareholder value is the only thing, without taking into account that, like, on some level, everything's a shareholder. It's like, I just, what happened there? Do you know?
Well, I mean, the B Corp movement seems to be reversing that. So
which I'm super stoked about that. Yeah.
And actually, I have to promote one of my podcast guests, Lorna Davis.
Please.
So she was not solely responsible, but she played a big role in the largest B Corp ever, which is Danone North America. And her on my podcast, look it up, because she goes way into B Corps. And
say her name again.
What?
Say her name again.
Oh, Lorna Davis. And just look her up. I mean, she gave a TED Talk that's really good.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, the trend that I see is that if having resources gives you influence and having influence gives you resources, then I think that's what the founders of the Constitution foresaw happening. And so that's why they put in checks and balances to keep that from happening. But they didn't foresee that corporations were going to get more and more power, and they'd use that power to get more power.
Right.
So to me, it seems like a systemic effect that's difficult to reverse or to stop, but that seems to be what's happening in this nation. And so people who grow up with the values of now, and they don't realize that they've lost the values of before. So the B Corp is reversing that somewhat. I mean, Leadership in the Environment Inc. I just filed for my 501c3 status. So there's that.
Leadership in the Environment Inc.
Yeah. And so it takes concerted effort. I mean, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance or something like that. I forget that.
Yes, for sure. That's I mean, that's close enough. And, but I also think that, again, they're like, it's just fractal, it's the little teeny piece of a human being to the family, to the organization, to the state, to the country, to the world. I feel like I wonder where it's gone, that great leadership revolves around things like integrity and values and concern for others,
Well, it's right here, brother. It's alive and well here and there.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to have reached the mainstream, or it seems to have lost the mainstream.
Yeah.
My dad, I was just talking to him about, he's had this tree that its roots have messed up the plumbing, not the plumbing, but the rain drainage in his house. And he said, Josh, you'll be happy to know that I was talking to a neighbor, and they said, you should get a rain capture system to capture it in barrels instead of through the pipes. And that way you don't have to, it's going to be a big cost savings, and it's going to save water and stuff like that. And he goes, Josh, isn't it great what technology does? And I go, Dad, they've been capturing rain for 10,000 years. This is not a new technology.
Right.
This is rediscovering what fossil fuels and so forth have like taken us away from.
Mm-hmm.
that's environmentally speaking, but leadership speaking as well. People have been leading very effectively for a long, long time, and probably more so before. I mean, social media and lots of very recent tools are promoted as making the world smaller, but I find that they diffuse communities and disperse communities and sometimes outright destroy communities. And it takes work some stuff was automatic before. It takes a little more work to bring it back now to have integrity. Effective leaders love, in my experience, accountability and responsibility. They want it. We want it. Yeah. Children want to avoid it. And people who, to me, maturity, that's one big stage of maturity, is wanting responsibility, recognizing that, not just blindly, but for things you care about, creates meaning, creates purpose. And accountability creates motivation. It helps you get the job done. Yeah. Our educational system it tells us what our values should be. It doesn't help us find our own values and struggle to figure out what they are. Certainly, role models, education, the institutional things you talked about of what our institutions are designed for. There's a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's a huge, tremendous opportunity to lead. Yeah, which is why I'm teaching leadership, why I am taking on leadership roles. The environment, man. Everyone. And a lot of people talk about it. Very few people behave consistently with what they say. Yeah. And their framing, their picture is, it's a burden. It's a chore. Like, I have to, but I don't want to. Yeah. And I'd much rather not. But then you get these weird things, like they feel it's a big burden. I was having coffee with this guy. He's the chief COO maybe of some major corporation. You know the company, but I'm not going to mention it. And we're walking from getting coffee to his office. And we're at the cafe, and we leave from the cafe, and we're walking, 5 blocks from the cafe to his office where he's going to start working. I'm going to go off on my day. As we're walking there, he gets out a cell phone. He's doing something. I don't really pay attention to what was he doing with the cell phone? He was using the Starbucks app to get a Starbucks coffee at a place on the way. We just came from a cafe. I have no question that the office has coffee in it. Right. And so we go in the Starbucks, because only when we walk in the door, I realize what's happening. And without interacting with a person, he picks up the Starbucks and he points out to me, he says, "It's okay that I'm getting this plastic cup because I use this plastic cup all day. And I didn't get a straw and I didn't get a lid." I'm like, you didn't have to get it at all. Like, for him to go, half an hour without that coffee was a burden too great for him to bear, even though he was telling me how much he does for the environment. Right. Now, to me, the issue here is I'm not calling out hypocrisy. That's not the point. He's missing out on a better life. Yeah. He's missing out on, I don't think it's a great life that, like, anytime you want anything, you should be able to get it without any concern to who's on the other end of the plastic cup. And I don't know anyone who is like, I got this friend. This friend of mine is so spoiled and entitled. You'll love them. Yeah. Really, I want to meet them. I've not met that person who says that. Well, and spoiled and entitled is not the person who I think tends to be the most fulfilled either. I just don't think there's much fulfilling in that even for that person, right? Yeah, it's almost the opposite of satisfied. It's their business. I'm not here to change anyone's values. I'm here to help people do what they wanted to do, but haven't figured out how. Right. So if someone comes to me and they're like, "Look, I don't care about the environment." I'm like, "Well, vaya con Dios." But there's plenty of others who do, and I want to help them. If they want help in becoming a better leader, in taking more initiative, I can't. If they want to be a better leader. Yeah. There you go. Well, hold it up again. Hold it up again. Oh, both of them? Yeah, your book's been sitting there too. So leadership step by step. These books are the book. So Joshua Spodek's books, Initiative and Leadership Step by Step. Yeah, and so they're the book versions of my courses. So they have the exact same exercises that someone who pays $6,000 to take my course at NYU pays or does, but you do it at home. And some people come to get coaching for the one-on-one stuff, which goes in a lot more depth. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that just do it. They just do the exercises And you can do them all with, I think some people have gotten through without paying a single penny. I mean, except the book. Then it's really solo stuff. It's not solo, but stuff that if you are motivated to do it, you can do it. And you will emerge as, you'll develop the skills, experiences, and beliefs of an effective leader and initiator. Most people, initiator means entrepreneur, but not everyone. A lot of community organizers are just people initiating things in their lives.
Right. So we're coming up on our time, because I know that you've got a hard stop as well. But tell us a story about one of those people and something they did, or people that you've worked with. Tell us a story to illustrate a leadership principle. So one of them is, I'm going to tell the opening story in Initiative, which is Raphael. Raphael came to me and he came to me and he said, Josh, I know that you started companies. I know that you coach. I would like you to coach me to help start a company. So I said, why? So he said, because he's at a small media company. And the story is that he wants to be a part of the decision makers. And he keeps coming to them with ideas and he keeps proposing them. And they would always say, well, think about it. And they never did anything. So he's like, I can't work here anymore. I can't work for a company because I have to be the one making the decisions, because I don't want to just keep getting stuck like that. So we start working together and I start walking him through the exercises. And at one point he says, Josh, I don't need to start a company. I was like, wait, that was the whole point of you coming here. And I said, okay, you and I have been developing this project for me to leave, but I've been using the skills that you've been teaching me to change my relationship with my managers. And I'm treating them like the venture capitalist. And instead of coming to them and saying, here's an idea, take it or leave it, I'm doing the exercises. I'm developing the idea, but I'm involving them in the process. And so they're thinking that they're giving me advice, and that now they have a vested interest in this thing working because it's partly theirs. And last week they said, this is your project. You got it. He didn't want to start a company. He wanted ownership in the sense of resources and deadlines and the responsibility to get things done. Did he want to file with the state? Did he want to, find benefits packages for new hires? He didn't want that. And so that's initiative. I mean, you can call it entrepreneurship, but to me, it's a much more general thing. It's a big piece of leadership. It's if you're simply going to wait for your managers or your leaders to give you stuff, they're busy getting promoted themselves. They might, if you got a really great one, but chances are they're busy doing their thing. And if you're watching other people getting promoted ahead of you or getting projects that you wish you had, you can initiate those things yourself. Not easy, but it's not easy if you don't have the skills. If you have the skills, it's not only easy, it takes effort, but it's very rewarding. It's deeply rewarding. It's the most rewarding stuff you'll ever do in your life. Yeah, that's a fabulous story. I love it. I mean, that's leadership, right? And it's not a hierarchical thing. It's not the org chart that makes you a leader.
Oh no, that's position. That's authority.
Yeah.
That's not leadership.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's great when they go together, but they don't always. Now I'm going to tell another story that you wouldn't ask me this. And if you can edit this out if you want. But the reason we met was that I got asked to do a TEDx talk and it was less than 2 weeks. And I was like, I need coaching. And you coached me through that. And it was tremendous. And that's a big part of why I had a second and a third one. And the story is that I couldn't have done it without you. And I said yes to it. Like, what am I going to do? And then you walked me through how to do it step by step. So I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. And
you're too humble to get me to share it otherwise. And if it breaks with the show's content, you can edit it out. But if it doesn't, I have no second thoughts about saying that.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate hearing that a lot. And I'm really glad whatever the turn of circumstances was that had you come to me, I'm so glad you did. And I'm glad to know you. And you have had an impact on my life and on how I look at my relationship with the environment. And I was pretty good about it before, but you are more rigorous in your pursuit of just the mentally rigorous about it than most. And I really appreciate that. And
behaviorally, I think.
Pardon me?
Not just mentally, but behaviorally.
But yeah, exactly. Mentally rigorous. And that translates into actual action, right? It's not that you're just rigorously thinking about it.
Because everyone cares. I've not met someone who doesn't care about the environment. It's
right.
behaviors where that's the challenge.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and the mental rigor to associate your behavior with the bigger picture, somewhere along the line, I think it's really easy for us to just disassociate, even if we know this and we know that, to put those things together and then take action. Yeah, exactly. Well, I do look forward to hearing how that goes, and
maybe seeing.
And I think that, what I think that demonstrates on a really fundamental level is something that I think is truly, truly important just to basic good leadership, which is having principles that you're committed to, that you would even, do something like that with.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that except the earlier ones, but you got to start with something, but start with something. You got to start somewhere. You can't just wait for government and corporation. They're the last ones. They're going to be kicking and screaming brought into this, just like every other major social change in history.
Yeah.
It
starts with me, right? It starts right here, right now. I love it. So Joshua, I'll let you go because I know you got to go and I got to go too. I do hope you'll come back. I think it's a blast to see you. I'm glad we got a chance to talk here. And I'll put links to your books in the notes. I'll put the other things that we talked about in here. And to everyone who's listening, thank you for coming. Thank you for your leadership. And, Joshua, one thing that I will say is I think that on some level, any form of leadership takes courage, because it just takes courage to get noticed by the group, because it's dangerous, to stand up for something you believe, to speak up for something, to ask the difficult question. That just always takes courage. So to everybody that's listening, I wish you the courage to be the leader you want to be. And thank you for having the courage to be a leader at all. And Joshua, thank you for your unique brand of courage and your message. And I'm just glad you're in the world making a difference. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. You're warming my heart.
All right. Talk to you soon. See you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.